Welcome to Just Some Points, episode 6. We are still in quarantine. I'm sitting at the Adirondacks in upstate New York today with my big shout out to my Sky Blue FC women's professional soccer team sweater. They still haven't started playing this season for obvious reasons. But so I'll kick it off. I'm with Nicola, our head of marketing again, and with Tammy, our head of business development. So shout outs to New Jersey and St. Louis. I'll kick it off today. I saw an article about TikTok this week that I paid a little bit more attention to. TikTok is now enabling you to actually to log into TikTok on a computer. And I think the main reason why they allowed you to do that is they also allow you now to look at analytics. And analytics obviously is important for people like us, for marketing people, for agencies. If we want to know how impactful or how effective your marketing your advertising on TikTok is, you need the analytics and the statistics. So I think that's a really interesting move, with TikTok being so hot at the moment as a channel. Them understanding that they can generate a lot of revenue with advertising, they now have to serve the agencies that spent the money. So I thought it was really interesting news, and certainly something that we will pay attention to. I know that Nicole is happy about that.
I am. I'm actually a big fan of the platform. I think it's a lot of fun, especially right now when we need a distraction. What's interesting about the analytics is, from what I've seen, you don't always advertise in a typical way on TikTok. A lot of times these sponsored posts that are being done by the teenagers, it requires them going back to an agency and saying, well, here's my engagement rate, here's what was seen on my video, and then them getting paid. So it's a very interesting mix of that traditional influencer marketing of how many followers you have, what's your traditional engagement rate, as well as, okay, well, how's your video performing?
That's right. So I thought it was interesting. Tammy, do you want to go next? What did you find interesting this week?
So, of course, I am big on Facebook. So the thing that actually popped up on mine was the Ruth Chris and the Shake Shack with their loan decision, and very interesting opinion on it. I've been a business owner, so when this was offered, it was great. It was a great way for companies to survive, and I think within an hour of them publicizing that Ruth Chris and Shake Shack received I think Ruth Chris got 20 million and Shake Shack got 10. How under fire they came. So change.org, I think, went up within what, Nicole, you probably are better with the numbers than I am, probably within an hour.
Very quickly.
Yeah, 250,000 people put out there that very negative comments about Ruth Chris, saying that they would, not eat at their restaurants, not do this, totally blackballed them. But from a business point of view, when it comes to publicity, my question is, what is your guys' opinion on how Ruth Chris and Shake Shack should have handled this marketing? Because when it comes to publicity, good or bad, it's still publicity. But I'm interested to see what you two would think of how you would have handled this situation and what you would have done.
Yeah, so I think, yes, it is publicity, but I think it leaves a stain on their brand that is not that easy to eliminate. And I think it was not very smart. First of all, I think it was unethical and just wrong. And then second, if they did this calculated, then it was stupid on top of it, in my opinion. I really do believe that a lot of people will think completely differently about this brand. In fact, as you guys remember, we had a discussion about it last week internally, and some people said, I will not go to them anymore. And, I think, even if they might go there again sometime in the future, the stain is there. I think it was not smart. I think you're better off today having campaigns like what we talked about last week, with what was it, the Cheetos, than doing something like this.
I agree. I think that, for me in general, my personal opinion, I'm not a big Ruth Chris fan. I would rather support the local steakhouses, but I agree with Thomas. I mean, this is something that even when this is done, I know we had touched on this last week, people are going to remember that this is what they did. And,
Right.
I think on an interesting point, I think that, the Steak and Shake and the In-N-Outs now have a little bit of a leverage to step forward and be like, listen, we didn't take this loan like Shake Shack did. We are doing this on our own. We're caring about our businesses and our employees by doing this. They kind of opened up the door by taking that step backward. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
But as a marketing person, how would you have spun it? So your company applied for it, you got it. Yes, you're saying I'll give it back. My personal opinion is the way that they gave it back, they handled it completely wrong. It's a known fact. 3.8 million people applied for unemployment this week. By them not accepting that loan, guess what they're going to be doing? They're probably going to be laying people off. So again, bad publicity when Uncle Bill isn't a waiter anymore at Ruth Chris. Personally, I feel like they should have stepped up to the plate and said, you know what? We are going to keep 10% of this loan just to ensure that we can keep 80% of our workforce. We're going to give back 90%. The 10% that we are keeping and then on top of it, our upper management is going to take a pay cut to ensure that we keep our staff at full capacity. Because Shake Shack, they gave theirs back, but you know what? Shake Shack has the upper hand on Ruth Chris because takeout's easy for fast food. You don't have to plan ahead. You don't have to call Ruth Chris, place an order, wait. Shake Shack has a quicker turnaround, and it has more on that. Then on top of it, I would have spun it. Look what our management team did. I mean, who's to say, seriously, who wants to quote on who will be the man of the year on People Magazine next year? Who's to say that somebody couldn't have taken this as a turn to say, look what this company did they stepped up, management stepped up. That would, to me, that would even take a bad situation, turn that publicity into an amazing campaign to say that, yes.
I would agree with you. I'm not sure if I would focus it so much on the executives, but in general, I agree with you. I think taking up the fight would have probably be the smarter point. But if you do take up the fight, I think you would have to be absolutely transparent why you take up the fight. Not because you're greedy, but you pick up the fight, or you're not shying away from the fight because you absolutely need the money in order to have the employees survive. And in order to make this transparent and believable, I think if you would go down this route you're suggesting, which I think is a good idea, then you would have to put a face behind that or towards that, meaning you take some of the employees that we want to be the face and say, Mary kept her job because of the PPP program money we got. Jim still has a job guaranteed because he would have lost a job. You would have to put a face. I think it would be more effective. Then yes, you can underlay the messaging with things you might have done, like cutting the salaries from the executives. But generally speaking, I think it would be better to, I think, in your words, pick up the fight, but make it transparent and related to the people that people can relate to, meaning the workers who keep the job. Because
then they can take that marketing campaign, Thomas, and they can run with that for months. Because as well as I do, when a company does something bad, it is not forgotten. It is not. This will probably come back to haunt Ruth Chris, just for the simple fact, people are on social media now that won't be on it when life resumes to normal. They're not going to have time to sit there and scroll through everything. And who's to say it's, every day is a new story. So with that being said,
Right.
the Ruth Chris and the Shake Shack, they could take this and pretty much run with this to say, yes, we did keep 10%. And like you said, Randy, you know, Aunt Susie kept her job, or my college kid didn't get let, or, you know, so-and-so was able to keep her job and still go to college because of this loan. So with that being said, it's like the recovery, sometimes I feel like Ruth Chris and Shake Shack put a Band-Aid over it and said, oh,
Yeah, well,
we
it
scraped
will be
ourselves.
interesting to see. Yeah, I agree with you, but it will be interesting to see how they write the story, because this story is not finished, so we will see how this will shake out.
Right.
So, Nicole,
Transparent.
how are you doing this week? What have you found this week?
I am good. So one thing that I have been looking at is the changes that COVID has made on social media. So I know obviously this ties into what we were just talking about as well. So I want to throw some facts out there real quick and then talk about what's it mean. So Twitter has seen an 8% increase in monetizable users since 2019, which is a 23% increase since their Q1 of last year. That is a lot. We don't normally see that high of a growth that quick. Facebook up by 37%, 50% on their video calls, including WhatsApp and Messenger. And the number of Instagram stories have increased by 15%. So people are posting more. But what's this mean?
And by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but Facebook actually just rolled out, I just saw that rolled out a press release or announced that they will actually beef up their video functionality across all their platforms on WhatsApp, and I think WhatsApp now allows you to do 8 tiles, but you can have up to 50 people connected, not visible. So they put it in the Messenger and all of those things.
And then absolutely, they're definitely, I think these big companies are starting to step up when they're seeing the engagements going up. And then Thomas, as you had brought up, TikTok engagement through the roof, up by 27% since the start of all of this. But what does this mean, I think, is what we need to take a step back and look at from a brand standpoint. And that means people are on their phone, whether that's to get news or to get a distraction. Now is the time to strike as a brand. You don't have to be pushing, you know, sales, but you need to be pushing, not pushing necessarily, that humanity of, hey, you know, here's a video to distract you of this week, or, you know, here's what we're doing in our community. And by showing consistency in posting, especially for those larger brands like Apple, like Pepsi, they have a following where they're going to expect to see a post every day at a certain time. And by keeping that consistency, you're almost giving a sense of security to the people who are looking at it, because yeah, the world may be burning outside my window, but at least when I open my phone, I have consistency that I'm used to.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also, it gives brands a great time to actually talk about what they do, not just who they are, what, you know, what they're doing in the community. You can also hook your customers. You can do a post that is, you know, not just engaging, but it's also informational about your products or your services. I agree.
Right.
Yeah. There's also been a shift in posting times as well. So every year Sprout Social puts out a calendar of the best times to post on social media, which they had actually did in Q1. They just amended that, being that there is a ton more times that we are seeing peak engagement, where normally we would have only seen one day of peak engagement, which was Wednesdays at 11 for Facebook. Now you're seeing multiple days between 10 and 11. Why that could be? Maybe, you know, that's in between meeting times for people. People are starting to get hungry. They want a distraction. And that's when they're grabbing their phone, when they're trying to just decompress for a second. So it's interesting to see how these trends are changing, and I'm interested to see where we are in a few months.
That's interesting. That's cool. Very interesting. Actually, since we're on stats, I have a few more things to close it out, maybe for today, and also to keep it connected to last week. Last week, we talked about, you know, what the strategies could be for companies to market. And I found this week at one company out of 4 declares that it will increase marketing activity. So that's good news that some people, or maybe those are the ones that listen to our blog, just some points. But more should do. But also, there's some other good reasons. Cost per 1,000 impressions are down, which means you can achieve the same that you did a few months ago for less money. And then related to that, I just saw a really interesting graphic the fastest growing categories of products that really go through the roof. The obvious ones are like disposable gloves, but bread machines. I noticed that there's no yeast in the supermarkets because people make their own bread. Well, hence bread machines are through the roof. Soups, packaged foods. But then, what is down? It is gym shoes, gym clothing is down. But on the other side, weights training equipment is through the roof, is up. Why? Because people do it from home. Dried grains up, fruit cups up, milk and cream obviously up, dishwasher supplies up because we spend so much time at home and leave a mess in the kitchen. So there are a lot of industries and a lot of product categories that are really doing well, actually remarkably well, and actually beyond. Those are the categories that will actually trail off, as everybody else will hopefully will do better again. So I would say that concludes number 6. We'll hope to see you next week again, and I hope it was interesting and helpful for everybody. Bye.